Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
Joshua Shrum. He is a very talented steward, very knowledgeable.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. This is one of those podcasts where I listen to every episode. I love what he's putting out there.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. Josh Shrum.
Parcels of Knowledge. Does a fantastic job with that podcast.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today, we will be talking about voluntary reassignments and mutual exchanges. But first, I got some things to go on to begin with. I am going to make Wednesdays a permanent fixture of the podcast. It's going to be called Wrecking Crew Wednesdays. And this is where I'm going to acknowledge the people who have donated to the Patreon that I mentioned earlier. By the way, I got a Patreon. I asked if you want to support the channel or the podcast, whatever you want to call it. If you want to support us, you're welcome to pay into the Patreon anywhere between $1 and $50 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Here I'm going to recognize the Roseville Wrecking Crew so far. Let me take a look here. It looks like I've got currently 3 members of the Patreon. And coming first is Rick Steiner. He was the first one to come on board. He's a great guy. I love Rick Steiner. And second was somebody who identified themselves as ER. And third is Tom Perry. So far, that's our wrecking crew right now. And they left messages. At least 2 of them did. Rick Steiner said, "Appreciate all the knowledge you share." And ER said, "Keep wrecking." I'd like to take a moment to recognize these guys for making sure that this show happens right now. And, man, I couldn't do it without you guys. So I appreciate each and every one of you, but I want to give a special thanks to the Roseville Wrecking Crew. Yeah, that's going to become a permanent fixture of Wednesdays. And also, I'm going to possibly start using a little bit more sound effects. Hopefully you guys don't mind. But yeah, Roseville Wrecking Crew, thank you so much for everything you do. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. But if you're interested, I'm going to put the Patreon link in the episode description. And without further ado, I'm going to get into the good stuff. Now, we're going to talk about voluntary reassignments first. And then we're going to talk a little bit about mutual exchanges. Transfers within the letter carrier craft are governed by 4 contractual provisions. Article 12 of the National Agreement, it's where I'm going to begin my first reference. These provisions, which apply only to career employees, must be read in concert to fully understand the transfer process. Article 12 of the National Agreement lays the groundwork for the transfer process in Section 6, which states, installation heads will consider requests for transfers submitted by employees from other installations. And B, providing a written request for a voluntary transfer has been submitted, a written acknowledgement shall be given in a timely manner. The MOU retransfers, which is incorporated into Article 12, is comprised of 2 sections which define the categories of transfers. 1. reassignments to other geographical areas, and 2, local reassignments. Determining what section covers the transfer request requires knowing where the employee currently works and the location of the requested office. All transfer requests are covered under Section 1, unless they are defined as local transfers, which are covered under Section 2. A local transfer is a voluntary transfer to an office within the employee's current or an adjacent district. The MOU, Read Transfers, also defines the criteria management should consider when deciding whether to accept an employee for transfer. Grievances filed over a denial of transfer must be filed in the employee's current office, even if the denial was issued by the office where the employee wished to transfer. That's right. Transfers that are denied are grievable. So, with that being said, this issue is addressed on page 1245 of the JCAM. The denial of a transfer request is a grievable matter. When the denial of a transfer request is grieved, the disputed decision is by the postmaster of another installation. Nevertheless, any grievances concerning the denial of transfer requests must be filed with the aggrieved employee's immediate supervisor as required by Article 15.2. Arbitrators from one region have the authority to order postmasters in another region to accept a transfer request. That's right. In this episode, you get an amalgamation of multiple different things. Now we're talking about grievance jurisdiction, which is a very fascinating topic in my opinion. But well, normally a grievance would be grieved within the jurisdiction of which the issue arose. So if a carrier was sent to another office and their Article 8 was violated over there, one way or another, that office would have to normally file. In this case here, it specifies that when you're denying transfers, the jurisdiction is within the person who requested the transfer's office. So I love little tidbits like that because I'm just one of those people that want to get to know everything possible. But continuing on, the only difference between the two types of reassignments is the lock-in period an employee must serve before being eligible to transfer. For transfers covered under Section 1, the employee must serve 12 months lock-in period, while those covered under Section 2 must serve a lock-in period of 18 months. There are some exceptions to the lock-in periods. One exception is granted if a letter carrier who previously transferred wants to return to his or her former installation. In this case, there is no lock-in period. This exception applies only to employees who were career employees prior to transferring. A current career employee wishing to return to an office where he or she previously served as a city carrier assistant is not eligible for this exception. A second exception to the lock-in period is available to a letter carrier who previously transferred if the installation head of the current office releases the employee early. A third exception is available to part-time employees. Under Section 2C of the MOU, retransfers, employees who can increase the number of hours by 8 or more per week will need only to serve a 12-month lock-in period even if the transfer is covered by Section 2. The employee must still meet all the other criteria required to transfer. Keep in mind that newly converted career employees must serve this lock-in period, and time spent as CCA does not count toward the minimum service time requirements discussed above. Newly converted career employees may not be released early from the lock-in period in the second exception. However, these employees converted to PTF may be granted the third exception. This issue is covered in the questions and answers from a 2011 National Agreement M Document 1870, dated March 16, 2016. It's question 28. After CCA becomes a career employee, does he or she serve a lock-in period for transfers as defined by the Memorandum of Understanding retransfers? The answer is yes. Once career letter carriers have met the lock-in period described above, they have two options for submitting their request. Regardless of which option they select, the request will be entered in e-reassign, the automated system used by the Postal Service to administer transfer requests. Employees may access e-reassign online at light blue. The first option is for an employee to submit a written request to Human Resources in the installation where he or she wants to transfer. The employee should keep a written record of the request. That's especially important because we got to make sure that we're keeping record of everything that we do. You know how management never, ever keeps record the way that they're supposed to. So we got to make sure we're upholding that. The second option is for the employee to submit the request to e-reassign using one of the options listed above. However, most letter carriers will use light blue for their submissions. To log into light blue, employees will need their EIN and password. After logging in, employees can submit a request if they know the installation and craft into which they want to transfer. If they do not know which craft positions are available in offices where they desire to work, e-reassign allows them to search by city or state. Even though an office may have letter carrier craft employees, a vacant position may not be available at the time of the request. Employees still should request a transfer to the installation because when the position does become available, all individuals who request a transfer into that installation will be considered in the order in which requests are made. Employees may submit an unlimited number of transfer requests. However, each request expires 1 year from the date of submission. Once a request is received, the employee will be placed on hold until the office is able to accept a transfer. Once the opportunity for transfer is available, an employee is being considered. He or she will be placed in review. Employees can check the status of the request via e-reassign. To keep a request active, it must be renewed every year, on or before the date of submission. Requests may be renewed up to 90 days prior to the expiration date. Requests in e-reassign will automatically renew if it is in review on the date of the request expires. Letter carriers, you should not rely on this automatic renewal and should instead renew your own requests every year, because we all know that management systems does not live up to what they're supposed to be doing. Requests that are in review prior to the expiration date will not be renewed if the employee is placed back on hold. If an employee fails to renew the request, any new request will be placed in order based on the date of the new submission. This could result in missing out on a transfer opportunity that the employee would have otherwise been offered. Career letter carriers who wish to transfer into another craft within the installation where they currently are employed must submit a written request to the installation head. As stated above, the employee should keep a copy of his or her requests. These types of requests are not entered into e-reassign. Therefore, there is no need for the employee to renew the request on a yearly basis. Requests to transfer to another craft are filled based on the contract covering the requested craft. Once an employee has requested a transfer and has met all the criteria to be eligible for reassignment, the MOU, Full-Time Regular Opportunities, City Letter Carrier Craft of M 1947 is applied. That MOU sets forth the pecking order for filling full-time opportunities, whether through the assignment of unassigned regulars, promotion of part-time flexibles, or the conversion of career carrier assistants, city letter carrier assistants, CCAs, to career status, or the acceptance of transfer requests. Under paragraph 1 of this agreement, the opportunity would be filled through the assignment of a UAR. If there are no UARs in the installation, the PTF with the highest seniority in the office will be promoted to full-time regular. Paragraph 3, which allows opportunities to be filled through reassignment, limits the ratio of career transfers based on the size of the office. Offices defined as having more than 100 work years can accept no more than one transfer for every 4 full-time opportunities that become available. Offices with less than 100 work years may accept no more than one transfer for every 6 full-time opportunities. The work year designation of each office is determined at the beginning of each collective bargaining agreement. Letter carriers with questions regarding the designation of an office should contact their NBAs. Now, be careful with that ratio shit, because with the way that the ADR is operating, it almost appears like they're able to do catch-up opportunities. And they can also, surprisingly, unfortunately, they can also put them in any order. So let's say if you're a 1-to-4 ratio, well, they can have 3 conversions, 1 transfer, and then 3 conversions. So, 2 transfers in a row. So obviously they can just kind of, as long as it's 1-to-4, they can kind of make it however they want. And it almost appears like they let them do catch-up opportunities. When I filed recently, that's what it seemed like. In offices where CCAs will continue to be converted to PTF in accordance with the MOU City Carrier Assistance Conversion to Career Status, the ability of career employees to transfer will be limited, since opportunities must be filled through the promotion of PTFs prior to accepting a transfer. Yeah, this is going to be a big deal. This is going to be a big deal coming up because of the fact that
Something ain't right.
there's going to be so many PTFs in the near future. It seems like more and more offices are getting PTFs. So because PTFs is the first option in the pecking order, it looks like that transfers are going to be very limited in this case. Yeah, M 1947 addresses these situations by modifying some of the terms of the MOU. Offices which could have accepted a transfer had there been no PTFs on the rolls may still offer the transfer opportunity to a career employee. However, the transferring employee would become a PTF letter carrier in the new office. Employees accepted for a transfer under 1947 will be counted in the ratios described above. When an employee is accepted for transfer, whether as full-time or part-time, the reports to the new installation, he or she begins a new period of seniority. This is governed by Article 41.2.A.2, which states, seniority is computed from the date of appointment in the letter carrier craft and continues to accrue so long as the service is uninterrupted in the letter carrier craft in the same installation, except as otherwise specifically provided. All right, so we got through voluntary transfers, voluntary reassignments, whatever you want to call it. And next, we will be talking about the even more exciting topic, which is mutual exchanges. Yeah, that will be mutual exchanges. I love mutual exchanges. Mutual exchanges offer career letter carriers the opportunity to exchange positions with other career letter carriers in different installations. The rules and regulations governing mutual exchanges are found in Section 351.61 of the ELM, which states career employees may exchange positions, subject to the provisions of the appropriate collective bargaining agreements, if the officials in charge at the installation involved approve the exchange of positions. Mutual exchanges must be made between employees in positions at the same grade levels. The following employees are not permitted to exchange positions. A, PTFs. B, bargaining employees with non-bargaining employees. And C, non-supervisory employees with supervisory employees. A was actually PTFs with full-time employees. That's what it was. As stated above, mutual exchanges are limited to employees in the same classification. Letter carriers interested in a mutual exchange should communicate with other employees to ensure the exchange is permitted based on Section 351.61 of the ELM. I would suggest also talking to your branch, because normally branches can talk to other branches where you want to go to, and they will both post a post saying, hey, there's a mutual exchange that this particular carrier from this installation is looking for. If anyone's interested, please call them. That's a really good thing that branches do. While Section 351.61 of the ELM states employees must be in the same grade level, this rule does not apply to career letter carriers. The 2007 Memorandum of Understanding Mutual Exchanges, M1646 in the MRS, clarifies that Grade 1 and Grade 2 letter carriers are in the same grade for the purpose of mutual exchange eligibility. This MOU states, the parties agreed that in applying the relevant provisions of Section 351.6 of the ELM, city letter carriers in Grade 1 and 2 are considered as being in the same grade. This agreement applies solely to determining whether employees are eligible for mutual exchanges. Copies of this MOU and other M documents contained in the MRS are found at the NALC.org. Once letter carriers have agreed to initiate a mutual exchange, they should each write a letter to the installation head at the receiving end indicating that they seek a mutual exchange. They should also write a letter to their own installation head notifying them of their request and include a copy of the mutual exchange request letter. That's right, keep a copy of all that as well. The approval process for a mutual exchange is the same as a voluntary transfer request covered in the MOU. The parties agreed that the following procedures will be followed when career postal employees request reassignment from postal installations in one geographical area of the country to postal installations of another geographical area. Local reassignments within the same MSC division or adjacent MSCs or divisions are covered by the provisions of Section 2 of this memorandum. In accordance with the MOU above, installation heads must consider each mutual exchange request as they would for any transfer request. Full consideration must be given to work, attendance, and safety records of each carrier, and requests may not be unreasonably denied. By the way, oftentimes I have personally witnessed transfer requests be unreasonably denied, and that those carriers are not requesting information from the receiving to see how they were denied or why they were denied or filing a grievance. For example, I know there were people trying to request into my installation when someone was chosen from a different craft. I know those people were looked over because they had already made the decision. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have an idea of who they want, and they will look over everybody. Make sure you guys are requesting the information as to why you were denied and who got accepted, because that's going to be important. All right, full consideration must be given to work, attendance, and safety records of each carrier. That's going to be important. Make sure that if you want to transfer, you're doing your best to stay safe and have good attendance. Evaluations must be fair, valid, and to the point. This requirement is found in the JCAM. The provisions of the transfer memorandum requiring that installation heads afford full consideration to all reassignments requests apply to mutual exchanges just as to any other transfer. Such a request will not be unreasonably denied. In evaluating and responding to mutual exchange requests, installation heads should follow the criteria provided for in the transfer memorandum. And you know what that means? It means that this is another grievable thing. This is something that you can grieve if you feel like you were unreasonably denied, and I would fully endorse making sure that you can or cannot grieve it. Like the denial of a voluntary transfer request, the denial of a mutual exchange is a grievable matter. Even though it is the decision of the gaining installation head whether to accept a mutual exchange, the grievance must be filed in the employing office of the employee on which the denial was based on, as found in the JCAM, which states in pertinent part, the denial of a transfer request is a grievable matter. When the denial of a transfer request is grieved, the disputed decision is by the postmaster of another installation. Nevertheless, any grievances concerning denial of a transfer request must be filed with the aggrieved employee's immediate supervisor. Does that sound familiar? Yes, because I just went over that in the last segment. Letter carriers should keep in mind that a mutual exchange is a swap of positions, not assignments. Career carriers are exchanging positions with a carrier in another installation. Each carrier will vacate their assignment, which will then be posted for bid, according to Article 41 of the National Agreement, and the local bid procedure in each installation. This is explained as follows. This contractual provision does not mean that exchanging carriers exchange their routes as well as their positions. The route involved in the exchange gets posted in accordance with the provisions of Article 41. It's also covered in Article 12, which reads, mutual exchanges are exchanges of positions in the complement of different installations. Carriers do not exchange actual bid assignments or pay status, since the vacated bid positions must be posted for bidding in accordance with the provisions of Article 41.1 and the applicable local memorandums of understanding. Once a mutual exchange has been approved and each carrier is appointed in their new installation, the seniority of the employees must be determined. Normally, the seniority of a career-led carrier is governed by Article 41.2.A.2 of the National Agreement, which states, seniority is computed from date of appointment in a letter carrier craft and continues to accrue so long as service is uninterrupted in the letter carrier craft in the same installation, except as otherwise specifically provided. A career letter carrier who voluntarily transfers to another installation begins a period of seniority upon being assigned to the installation. This requirement is found in Article 41.2.G.3 of the National Agreement, which states, when a letter carrier transfers from one postal installation to another at the carrier's own request, except as provided in subsection E of this article. Even though both employees have changed installations at their own request, the contractual provisions listed above do not cover how seniority is determined. Employees involved in mutual exchange will either retain their seniority or take the seniority of the letter carrier with the least amount of seniority. The exception is found in Article 41.2.E of the National Agreement, which states, when mutual exchanges are made between letter carriers from one installation to another, the carrier will retain their seniority or shall take the seniority of the other exchangee, whichever is the lesser. This exception is also explained in the JCAM. Article 41.2.E provides that mutual exchanges are made between letter carriers. The carriers will retain their seniority or shall take the seniority of the other exchangee, whichever is lesser. This is different than the seniority rule in Article 41.2.G.3, which applies to other transferor and which requires the transferring employee to begin a new period of seniority. So just to break that down, if I have 5-year seniority and I'm transferring with somebody doing a mutual exchange with 3 years of seniority, we will both retain 3 years seniority in our respective new installations. So that's kind of a benefit to mutual exchanges. I really like that. Now, that does it for all that I want to talk about mutual exchanges and voluntary reassignments. But I do want to state this. I mentioned earlier that these two things are grievable. And, surprise, surprise, oftentimes they should have been grieved, because a lot of times we don't follow up on why a transfer was not accepted. Please, stewards, we need to be doing a good job at this. We need to make sure that we're there and that we do everything that we need to do in order to fully represent our members. If you think that you can't handle requesting additional information from an outside installation, then make sure somebody does, because it's important. I've personally seen transfers where I was not the jurisdiction steward that should have been grieved. So I know it happens quite often. So, like it said, that attendance is one of the things. Well, if you have FMLA and your only call-ins are FMLA related, well, then you have no attendance problems, because that's federally protected. Or safety, sometimes they will cite something that didn't exist or that happened so long ago It's ridiculous that they even would cite something like that. Like 10 years ago, you got into a car accident that wasn't even your fault. I would be a little bit on the excessive side when it comes to determining whether or not you're going to grieve this matter, because you never know what you can get. I would file no matter what, as long as you think there's something there that identifies an issue. Before I let you guys go, I do want to talk about David Grosskopf is coming to my podcast. We're doing an interview at the end of the month. I want some questions, man. We don't have a lot. Please send me some questions to my email, rosevillewreckingball@yahoo.com. Please. We really need some questions. I need you guys to give me some good questions, or else, maybe I'll have to come up with some myself. But yeah, we got some questions. We're going to need some more. David Grosskopf, he's running for trustee. There's a vested interest in him from all of you guys. It's not like he's running for NBA where the vested interest remains in a certain sector or region. Trustee's a national thing, and trustee's important because they deal with accountability of the people that are in charge. So I would say that that's an important job to talk about. Please send me any questions you want. He will answer anything. The deadline for the questions is January 30th. So please, I'm going to be looking for those questions. I'm going to put the email in the description as well. Hopefully, you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
If these guys are getting educated, we will be in big trouble.
Management's been weighing you down like a bag of wet catalogs, but you don't gotta take it. You strap on the elbow of education, dig it?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God, we need Article 8 scholars right now. The grievous genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.